Inside a 9-foot square enclosure, 8 mice were given total abundance. They had infinite food, unlimited water, an ideal temperature, and 0 predators. 5 years later, every single one of them was dead. Not a single death was caused by an illness a veterinarian could diagnose. The enclosure was called Universe 25. It was built by John Calhoun, an ethologist who spent 2 decades investigating one specific question: what happens to a society when survival becomes effortless? The total extinction of his colony was no accident. The environment's perfection was the fatal variable. When Calhoun published his findings in the early 1970s, the public drew a rapid, grim conclusion. The study seemed to prove that comfort and a lack of physical struggle will eventually rot a society from the inside out. Urbanists and politicians looked at rapidly crowding human cities and used Calhoun's mice as a metaphor for urban decay. The warning saturated global media. The image of perfectly healthy, quietly extinct mice was quoted everywhere, from religious sermons to debates on public policy. Calhoun's actual conclusion sat hidden in the data, pointing to a cause much more specific than the simple abundance the public saw. This graph tracks population inside Universe 25. First, the founders settled, then numbers exploded, doubling every 55 days until 600 animals were packed inside. Normally, surplus mice leave for new territory. Here, the limits of the steel box meant there was no escape. Young males with no available territory to claim began drifting into the center of the pen. Some formed motionless pools of bodies, absorbing attacks without fighting back. Others grew frantic, forcing their way into occupied nests and bypassing all social rituals. Calhoun called this breakdown the behavioral sink. Natural instincts warped. Even though identical food was plentiful everywhere, mice would crowd compulsively around a few specific feeders, ignoring completely full hoppers right next door. The physical territory was completely absorbed, and the biological drive for purpose misfired. Fundamental survival instincts were replaced by self-destructive chaos. The collapse quickly reached the family structure. With the males exhausted and failing to patrol their nests, mothers had to defend their own territory while nursing. This stress broke maternal care. Mothers turned aggressive, abandoning their pups or even consuming them. In the worst sectors of the colony, infant mortality reached 95%. The few pups that survived grew into a final generation Calhoun named the beautiful ones. They never fought, they never mated, and they ignored every other mouse. Their only activity was obsessively grooming their flawless fur. Their nervous systems had developed in an environment where every social role was permanently filled by someone else. With no place to fill, they simply opted out of the species. The population peaked at 2,200 animals. On day 920, the final successful conception occurred, and reproduction stopped. The bodies lived on for years until dying of old age, but the colony was extinct long before that. The social fabric evaporated because there was no reason to participate in it. Calhoun wrote that the mice suffered 2 deaths. The first was the death of the spirit, which happened years before the physical death of the body. He theorized that societal collapse becomes logical when the number of capable individuals outnumbers the meaningful roles a society can offer. The unlimited food and water didn't kill the mice. It merely removed the friction and struggle that made being alive feel like something. Calhoun concluded that life requires a purpose to inherit, a role to fulfill, as much as it requires physical sustenance. Calhoun spent the rest of his career not as a doomer, but as someone searching for the missing variable that could save a paradise. He recognized that humans possess a capability mice do not. When physical space and roles run out, we can expand outward into conceptual space. He called this ideational generativity. It is our ability to continuously invent new ideas, new digital networks, and new social roles that did not previously exist. The mice were defined by the physical limits of their pen. Calhoun's work suggests that humans can avoid their fate by choosing to build new conceptual worlds, ensuring the supply of meaning never runs out.